Many thanks for your company. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will appear before Parliament today to present a full documentation on government's recent controversial $2.25 billion bond issue. The minority has accused the Minister of conflict of interest, claiming he sold majority of the bond to a firm owned by his former business partner. The minority also claimed he's caused a $5 billion financial loss to the state in the transaction. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisi used a special process known as half-hour motion to compel the Finance Minister to provide the House with the details. Minority spokesperson on finance, Ato Forson, says the document will be a game-changer in their efforts to get to the bottom of the issue, or the Finance Minister will risk facing or risk contempt charges. Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gapo joins us on the line to tell us what to expect and events leading to this point. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Benny.
And we know that Parliament will sit today at about 12:30, and that's that around that time, the Finance Minister is also expected to present to the House full documentation on this $2.25 billion bond. First, before we go into what to expect today, how did we get here? Events that led to this point, Joseph.
And so you would recall that just a few days after the bond was issued and the amount in question, $2.25 billion actually raised in the country, the minority in Parliament addressed the press conference, and they indicated that they think that there was a problem with this particular transaction, raising issues about conflict of interest, raising issues with the relationship that the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta allegedly has with one of the key directors of the Franklin Templeton institution, which actually bought more than 95% of the bond. Subsequent to that, at that particular press conference, they made a call for a parliamentary probe into this particular bond issue. That has not happened to date, but they then indicated that beyond that, they were considering other options, including petition and also petitioning the United States government over this issue. As we have seen, some of those moves have already been done. A member of parliament on the NDC side, specifically representing the North Tongue area, who is also the minority spokesperson on foreign affairs, Samuel Okujeto-Ablakwa, filed a petition with the Security and Exchange Commission in the U.S. that was last month, and indicated that they've gotten the notification that that particular institution will be investigating this issue. You would also know that at the level of SRAD, the minority itself has not gone there with any information, but we've gotten the indication that the NDC's youth organizer in the Ashanti region, NS Project MC, has filed a petition in connection with this, which we know that the finance minister has actually responded to and indicated that he doesn't see any situation of conflict of interest and that there was nothing wrong with this particular deal. With what is expected in Parliament, you would recall that the minority had also asked for a parliamentary probe. The indication is that this appears to be the first step in their efforts to seek this parliamentary probe when it comes to this particular issue, and that's what we'll be seeing in Parliament later today.
Okay, and what time exactly is the Finance Minister expected, Joseph?
And so usually the House will begin sitting around 10 o'clock, but since they started, or better still, they resumed from their break, the House has been sitting at 12 o'clock because the explanation is that there is some work that needs to be done on the roof of Parliament, and usually the morning is spent doing that. And when the House is in session and that work is still being done, it's going to disturb proceedings. And so usually since they returned from the break last week, Tuesday, they've been sitting at 12 o'clock. So today's sitting is supposed to begin not even exactly at 12 o'clock, but maybe around 12:30. There are a number of other items on the table that have been scheduled for today, including an appearance by the Interior Minister to respond to questions about how the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator got booted out of his office. When all of that is done, a number of other statements are also expected. And then a little later in the day, most likely around 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. thereabouts, the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will be appearing before the House. It's a bit unclear. For the members on the minority side, whose leader Haruna Idrisi filed the one-hour motion to compel the Finance Minister to appear, they see this as a situation of the Finance Minister appearing before members of parliament and handing over documentation in relation to the transaction. And so they are not expecting him to deliver a statement. They are not expecting him to actually speak on the floor of parliament at all. But the majority side has indicated that they are expecting that he's going to give an oral address beyond handing in the documentation, and that he's going to speak on the floor and actually, explain how come the bond was issued, the currency in which it was issued, and also the processes that led to the issuance. You would recall that the finance minister, has responded to the issue at the level of Strat, and this response was written for him by the Deputy Attorney General, Godfrey Dame. The expectation is that the issues he'll be raising when he appears before Parliament would be no different from those. In the documentation that he sent, he was very categorical that there is no situation of conflict of interest. The allegation that the bond was skewed in a way to favor a particular investor is not accurate, and that they gave adequate time for all possible investors to put in their bids. And so it's not their fault that someone took more than 95% of that. A lot of what is expected to say on the floor of the House today may not be much different from what has already been presented to Shad.
Right, thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gapo. We'll touch base with you during the midday news. Hopefully, the finance minister would have presented document disclosing how that $2.25 billion bond was issued, and we'll be picking reactions from Parliament as well. Away from that, road crashes are not only deadly but costly. For transport companies especially, the impact on operations can be huge. Statistics, however, on that a considerable number of these crashes are caused by broken down and abandoned vehicles on major roads. In a bid to address the issue, the National Road Safety Commission, in partnership with the DVLA and other stakeholder institutions, is to roll out a vehicle towing campaign from the 1st of July. Kuku Aban reports this will come with some levies for motorists who are already resisting implementation.
Broken down and abandoned vehicles, heavy-duty trucks in particular, have over the years posed a major risk for motorists and pedestrians alike. The National Road Safety Commission estimates that almost 30% of road crashes in the country are caused by such unattended vehicles, most of them fatal. Here is Head of Communications at the Commission, Kwame Kudua Etiahene.
We had done an observational study on our major corridors: Accra Kumasi, Accra Flower, Accra Takrade, and in some urbanized environments. To learn, for instance, on a good day, if you travel the distance Accra Kumasi, you are likely to count about 80 broken down vehicles, many of which are high tonnage vehicles that always poses all kinds of difficulty for motorists. So that also prompted us to start looking at the figures. We realized from the figures that close to about between 21 and 25% of fatal crashes, crashes that leads to deaths of very innocent people, are occasioned by these broken down vehicles. So one way we needed to start to reflect on these concerns as an agency that is responsible for risk management.
To address this, the Commission has announced plans to impose levies on motorists from the 1st of July. A flat charge of 20 cedis will be slapped on private vehicle owners, 40 cedis for commercial ones, and 10 cedis for motorbike users. Minibus users would have to cough up 80 cedis, while heavy-duty truck operators are to pay between 80 and 200 cedis per their tonnage anytime they renew their roadworthy certificates. Kwame Etiahene explains.
But you see, we're looking at this model that will have all of us provide some minimum contribution to solve the national concern. Why? The high tonnage vehicle that breaks down, because there is no capacity to tow the vehicle, it stays on the road for hours, sometimes for days and weeks. And those of us who don't have vehicles, we've never thought of even procuring a vehicle or a motorbike. We sit in vehicles as innocent passengers. And because as a country we are unable to deal with this risk, we get to run into these vehicles and we lose our lives and property. So yes, I don't
There should be a way.
So I don't have a vehicle, but is there a way that collectively we can make some minimum contribution to be able to solve this problem? Yes. And that is what that was the rationale behind this whole model.
But motorists especially are kicking against this. For them, it's only an unfair means to extort monies from them.
They should come up with something to convince us to believe that indeed when they pass this bill or whatever it is, honestly, citizens are going to benefit. Because I don't remember the last time my vehicle was towed. You understand? So as individuals, I'm sure we have our own ways of going about it. And it might even cost us less. So they should probably leave us to do our own bit. I mean, we are not complaining, you understand? So whoever came up with this idea, honestly, should be debunked.
For motorists, it's good to have streets that are clear. You don't have to run into any broken down vehicles. And also, it will help people stay out of danger. Because people with vehicles on the highways are prone to robberies and stuff. Yeah, but the question for me is how it's going to be made effective. Because if you have to pay a small fee to have your vehicle towed, then it means you should have a real-time response when your vehicle breaks down.
I
don't think anybody should pay this money. My car barely breaks down. It can go a year without any issues.
There
are some of us who maintain our vehicles regularly so they never break down. They are even saying motorcycle users will be made to pay the charge. Do motorbikes need towing when they break down?
Transport consultant and executive director at Top Tech Transport and Logistics, Cecil Gabra, appears to agree. He wants the Commission and its allied agencies to suspend implementation for broader consultations first.
For me, it is too early for us to implement it. I think we need a national debate. All the transport stakeholders must come together and then discuss it thoroughly. At the moment, Ghanaians are paying a lot in terms of a token of the roadworthy we pay goes to the road fund. We need accountability. We want to find out from the road fund what that money has been used for. Okay. Now, if this reduction is done or the addition of 50, 20 cedis, of course, it's going to affect transport fares. It's going to affect everything that is being transported by road. Like you know, you and I know that in Ghana, about 90% of goods and services are transported by road transport. This is going to affect it. Fares are going to go high, but it's a good thing. If you look at developed countries, they are doing it. Your vehicle is stuck, they need a towing vehicle to move it from there so that we'll have the free flow of traffic. But I have a lot of questions to ask. How many towing vehicles will be placed in, let's say, on the motorway? Okay, how soon will the towing vehicle be there in case of any emergency? Now, you will find out that it's not possible to have maybe 10 minutes, 30 minutes time for the towing vehicle to reach to wherever it is. I believe also strongly that the companies involved must come out, or the government must come out to tell us which companies are involved. Let us know. I mean, we need transparency.
But Kwame Etuahene insists this campaign is the surest way to address the age-old road crash menace.
We have had to deal with this problem today because that is the law now. Today, from 1952 till today, that is the situation.
Why has that not been implemented?
Because the private sector don't find it attractive. For instance, if I go to buy a high tonnage vehicle that will cost, for instance, let's say 300,000 euro, as I'm told, and I'm asked to patrol, let's say, Accra to Nsawam, I'm telling you, it will take you forever to recover the cost of that investment.
You're looking for the easy way out?
It's not an easy way, the cost-effective way out. So what is the best solution given our unique situation, and at what minimum cost are we able to provide that solution. But here's a case: we are being invited to pay 10 cedi as a motorcycle rider. The maximum you are paying for high tonnage articulated truck is 200 cedis.
If you accumulate them, it's a lot of money.
Yes, but 200 cedis doesn't come up to even 20 pesos a day for a year. So that the innocent passenger, pedestrian who is poor, vulnerable, doesn't think about having a vehicle, is protected from running into a vehicle and losing their life.
So the question still lingers: the vehicle towing campaign to be implemented or to be suspended. Fingers, I believe, can only be kept crossed until the 1st of July this year.
Away from vehicle towing levies, let's talk about the lynched Major Maxwell Mahama. Private legal practitioner Herbert Fable is expressing worry about the manner in which suspects picked up in connection with the lynching of Major Maxwell Mahama are transported to and from court. He fears putting the suspects together as seen to and from court, quote, offers them a great opportunity to bond and construct their respective and joint differences to weaken the prosecution's case, unquote. In a write-up on his Facebook wall, the lawyer exclaims, quote, for Christ's sake, separate them until all formal statements have been taken and investigations completed, unquote. Should this really be the danger at hand, then it definitely gives cause for worry as interested parties to this case. So how can the state strengthen its case going forward? And has there been instances like this where prosecution lost sight and proceedings went in favor of the accused? Unfortunately, Herbert Fable Jr. is unavailable currently to answer these questions. But lawyer Edward Amuzu is joining us via phone to expatiate and, if we may call it, these warning signs. Lawyer Amuzu, good morning and welcome to Joy News Desk.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
First of all, what do you make of this warning or advice by your colleague, lawyer Herbert Fable Jr.?
Well, I think it's a good concern. However, we need to understand that the police will work within the context of the logistics which is available to them. In addition to that, we may not be aware of everything that the police is doing as far as this case is concerned. We may not know exactly where the suspects are held in custody, and we may not know exactly the time that they are all picked up for court appearance. So I can understand, my friend Egbert's concerns. They are good concerns, but I think that, again, the police really do know well how to make these arrangements such that they will do it within the best as far as the logistics arrangements available to them are concerned.
All right, Lawyer Muzu, you mentioned that we may not know, for example, the logistic constraints that the police service may have. But is it proper to allow logistics to possibly interfere with justice?
Well, ideally, all the institutions which are have anything to do with justice administration should be well resourced. We all understand that. But the reality is that many of the institutions really work under very trying circumstances. The police are even better off than some of the institutions. For instance, if you look at the circumstance in which our legal aid scheme is, for instance, it's very troubling. It's a situation in which no state institution which is supposed to play a role in justice administration should find itself in. But the reality is that the officers in the legal aid scheme, for instance, have absolutely no resource to work with, and it's very pathetic. I know that the police are better off than some of the state institutions which have a role to play in justice administration, but they may not have everything they need to play these roles as effectively as they should. So, like I said, we need to understand how they are handling this case from that perspective.
All right. Are there any examples or lessons from the past that we can share, you can share with us, and how judgment went as regards the transportation of suspects in cases?
Well, not with respect to a state losing a case directly, but I'm aware that even when you have suspects behind bars, even when suspects are in custody, sometimes some of them are able to communicate even by phone, by telephone, even from prison custody, from in police cells. They are able to communicate with people who are outside. So it is not strange to hear the caution that when you put them together in the same cell, they are able to communicate, they are able to try to suppress some of the evidence which you need to be able to do an effective prosecution against these people. But the other important aspect of all this is that while we are all mourning the death of Captain Mahama, I think it is important that we look at this case beyond prosecution. I take this case to be a national disaster. And when there's a national disaster, you can engage in prosecuting people, but you need to go beyond prosecutions. Prosecutions are just one of the things that you can do to make sure that we prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future. I think putting our energies in understanding what exactly took place, in understanding how intelligence can fill the whole of the state, for that matter, I think is very crucial. Without understanding it, we would take this, it is certainly a symptom of something which is very happening on the ground. We will deal with this one, prosecute people, put them behind bars, but it will keep repeating itself. And we are all aware that in the news, the same that Captain Mahama was murdered in cold blood, same situation happened somewhere in the country in the upper west. So I think we need to put more effort in understanding what exactly took place, in engaging in preventive measures while we pursue the prosecution.
Beyond the prosecution, what would you suggest we do?
Like I said, I think the first thing is to really understand what took place. So I expect some state institutions to be on the ground right now, and not necessarily looking at it from a criminal prosecution perspective, but really understanding what took place and escalate that to other forms of mob injustice which have happened in the country, so we can be well advised as to what exactly we should be doing. I'm unable to prescribe anything right now, because the important thing is to really understand what actually took place. I know we all jump to the conclusion that our justice system is slow, our justice system is unworkable, and so people take the law into our own hands. We need to have that discussion as well. If the justice system is unworkable, is the alternative to take the law into your own hands. I think that is completely unacceptable. The only system we have to go to when we have difficulties is our justice system. So we cannot say it is not working, so we take the law into our own hands. So, like I said, understanding what actually took place as far as Captain Mahama is concerned, and as far as other mob injustices are concerned, so we can chart a good path for ourselves, I think is the key thing to engage ourselves with at the moment.
All right, Lawyer Amuzu, I know you've mentioned logistics as a possible reason these suspects are all put into one vehicle, transported to and from court, despite Lawyer Egbert Fable raising concerns that they could communicate so that they weaken the case of the prosecution. But in your opinion, what is the ideal thing to do under such a circumstance when you have this number of suspects, about 41 of them, and suspects in a particular case, and you have logistic constraints. You cannot afford to transport them, maybe two in a vehicle each. What's the ideal thing to do so you do not allow them to punch holes into the judicial or justice system?
Well, one way to deal with it may be have some sort of special attention for this case from the level of the judicial service and the judicial service. So I will expect that we will have some special focus. So we could be trying all these guys in a court dedicated for the trial of this case, so that within a short time, we deal with this matter and it over and that way, even when they are talking among themselves, even when they are trying to stifle the efforts of the investigators, you're trying them in the same place. I should expect that there will be some inconsistencies in their evidence and their statement, which will inure to the benefit of the state at the end of the day. So I think, given that I know we are actually giving the case some special attention, and for me that is the way to go, so that in spite of the logistical constraints and challenges which the police service may have, we still are able to achieve conviction of the people who really need to be convicted, and not just anybody who probably found himself at the location and whose name may have come up and may have been arrested because the person was also there.
Thank you very much for your time this morning, Lawyer Edward Amuzu, speaking to us there on concerns raised by Lawyer Egbert Fable Jr. As regards how suspects in the lynching of Major Mahama are transported to and from court. Now, Lawyer Egbert Fable Jr. fears that the mode of transportation will allow these suspects communicate, which could weaken the prosecution's case. We tried to reach him, but unfortunately he could not speak on the matter. But interesting perspectives there from Lawyer Edward Amuzu. Well, we'll take a quick break here on Joy News Desk. We'll be back with more. Please stay with us.